This is the Sons of UCF, the number one place for UCF sports, with your distinguished host, Adam.
Let's all get together and see who can solve the Wordle the fastest.
And Mike.
You know, last year I think I said about 30 people in the UCF Sons of UCF group. Let's try to double that. Let's try to get 50.
Now, here are the guys.
Yes, you have found us again. Sons of UCF, episode number 173. My name is Adam, and as always, my friend and yours, the number one UCF podcaster out there in the world. That's why he's got the number one in his Twitter handle at UCF Mike1. It is UCF Mike. Mike, welcome back for another week, my friend.
I don't know how official these rankings are. I mean, number one, maybe. Yep. Last week we discussed that we think that Trace is somehow ranked ahead of us now. So yeah. I'll take the number one ranking.
It's you. Yeah, it's right in your title. I assumed it was in your title. And speaking of titles, make sure you find us on social media stuff at Sons UCF. We are still doing the YouTube subscription contest. So I think we're at 340 something right now. Once we get to 450, all your names go in a hat, and we have a free tumbler for you, either the 10 ounce or the 20 ounce. Official Sons UCF logo on there. Those are awesome. So make sure you find us on our YouTube page. Make sure you go to our website, tunismedia.com, and then follow us on all the social channels at Sons UCF everywhere you go. And as I said, Mike is at UCF Mike1. Trace is at SignPez. That's how you can get in touch with us. And always happy to hear from you. So don't be shy. Tweet at us. Send us messages. I think we always reply to people. So do us a favor. Follow us out there in the social media world, Mike. And this week we got a fun show for people. We're going to kick off this spring football stuff. We're bringing back Charge On, Charge Off. We have a throwback interview we're going to throw in here later on in the show. So if you haven't heard this one, when a lot of you probably haven't, stick around. You're going to love the throwback interview. We'll do some headline stuff, the cow of the week. It's an action-packed edition, Mike, as we get into the middle of March. March Madness is here. It should be a fun time for us in basketball land, but not so much, at least for the men's team.
That's right. But the women took care of business again. Regular season champs outright, conference tournament champions, and now a date with the Florida Gators in the big dance. Let's see what these women can do.
Yeah, let's just start there since we're on that topic, Mike. A rare double-double. I don't know how often this happens. I didn't look it up, but the women's team won the outright regular season American Conference crown, and then went to, obviously, the conference tournament and bested the Cows in the final to win the tournament crown as well, and finished off a fantastic regular season, Mike. I think 3 total losses on the ledger. And what did that earn them? The number 7 seed in the Connecticut bracket, first facing the Florida Gators. And if they win, then they have a matchup with the vaunted Connecticut Huskies in Connecticut, Mike, essentially a road game. That just feels like a terrible, terrible seeding job by the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, well, we're going to complain about something. I mean, I guess we can complain about that. But, you know, hats off to these ladies for a fantastic season so far. And, hey, we ended the Cows season in football. We ended it in men's basketball. We ended it in women's basketball. So it's been a very good few months here in the Kingdom. Last year, they had our number a little bit. They ended our baseball season in the conference tournament. They ended our women's basketball. Well, the women went on to the tournament, but they beat us in the conference championship game last year. So little revenge was had this year. The shoe's on the other foot. And now the Gators first. Let's not worry about UConn yet. Let's get past the Gators. Remember, we ended their football season with a loss. Let's end their women's basketball season with a loss as well.
Yeah, it's a cool accomplishment to get into the tournament. Obviously, it's the most exciting time of the year in college basketball. So when you get a chance to be part of the big dance, it's always fun. All kinds of strange upsets can happen. And you're right, Mike. I mean, we should go one game at a time here. What we do know about Coach Abe and her team is that they're going to get after you. They're going to play some defense. And defense travels, and defense is what wins you championships, and defense doesn't go in slumps. So even if the shooting isn't where it needs to be at, or maybe we're not making as many plays, you got to like that this is a defensive-minded team. And if they happen to be off a slow start, I mean, they can lock people down. And so you got to like their chances. I know they've been a tad disrespected by the committee, being 25-3 and only getting a 7 seed, even though they had a much higher net ranking than that. Feels a tad disrespectful, but we're used to that around here in Orlando. But you got to feel good because this is a defensive-minded team, and again, slumps will happen, but good defense, particularly, does not go in slumps, and that's what we have with this women's team this year.
That's right. And we had the Defensive Player of the Year in the American Conference in Diamond Battles, also the Player of the Year. We have the Coach of the Year, and a bunch of other girls that were on the all-conference team. So this is a well-balanced team that can do it all. And, we've never beaten the Gators in women's basketball. We have a chance to do that for the first time. We've never won a game in the tournament in women's basketball. We have a chance to do that. So a lot of opportunities here to start for this team to make its place in UCF women's basketball history. I'm looking forward to that first game.
The highest seed ever for that team, Mike. And for those planning out your schedule, Saturday is when the game will be played. 3:30 tip on ESPN News. You can see UCF taking on the 10th seed Florida Gators. Saturday, 3:30 ESPN News. Make sure you tune into that. That should be a fun one again. Anytime you can get into the postseason tournament, particularly March Madness and college basketball, it's always a fun time, Mike. And it's been a long time since we've been able to have that much fun with the men's team. We've been reminiscing last couple of weeks with BJ Taylor and Aubrey Dawkins about that magical run that the men's team had a few years back. And we were hoping that maybe this would be the year that we could do the same thing. A lot of optimism with a lot of the guys coming back. 98% of the scoring returned this year. We got off to a relatively good start. We beat out Miami, lose a close one, Oklahoma. We take Michigan pretty much behind the woodshed, and we think we're in line for a tournament bid on the men's side as well. But alas, things don't work in that favor. Some injuries, some inconsistent play. And before you know it, Mike, the men's team limps to an 18-12 overall finish, 9-9 in conference. That does include a win in the conference tournament. They hung on barely. South Florida had 2 shots in the air to beat us, but we end up coming up with a 60-58 win. And then we advanced to the next round the next night, and Memphis just pretty much took it to us. We lose by 16 in that one, Mike, to wrap up the season. Obviously, no NCAA berth for the men's team, no NIT berth for the men's team. Seems unlikely they're going to go to one of those CBI type of deals because you have to pay your way in. Doesn't make a lot of sense, Mike. So for all intents and purposes, your 2021-22 men's basketball team, 18-12 overall, 9-9 in conference. Mike, giving the entire season when what you saw, what you know, and what you experienced, so even think back to the good times, grade the season for the Knights. A, B, C, D, where you at?
Oh, with the expectations, and I know we've heard from a lot of people in the last few weeks that they go by the coaches poll apparently now, the preseason coaches poll, and we were only expected to finish 5th in this conference. We finished 6th in the regular season, so we're right around what was expected. I expected a little bit more. There's been plenty of times where we've been picked to finish towards the bottom in many sports and then have a lot better season. So I don't really go by those preseason polls. The 2017 UCF football team, I think, was picked to finish about
Mike, you cannot compare football and basketball. How many times have you been told this? Jesus, I have to edit this out.
As an example, because that's the only preseason poll that came to my head here. But, this season started off well. And it was kind of backing up our expectations. We were 9-2 in the out-of-conference play. A big win against Miami on the road, who is a tournament team. A big dominant win against Michigan, who is also a tournament team. And, we have a game canceled against Florida State, which that would have been another nice win if we had a chance. And I think at the time, we probably could have beat them the way we were playing. But then things really started to go downhill. It was the loss at Temple that really set things going in the wrong direction. Remember the game where they tied us up for the jump ball at the end, and we kind of blew that one, end up losing that one at home. We bounced back and we beat Memphis at home. And Memphis is not the same team that they are now, later in the year. But earlier in the year, we took advantage of them, beat them by 10. That was a good win. And then the debacle in Tampa, a game against East Carolina where we had to come back from 20 down. You sneak by Tulane, and then you lose to Wichita State. You get your doors blown off by Houston. You get beat up by Memphis badly on the road by 28 points, and things really just start falling off. And it's not because of injuries or anything like that. It's just the team was not playing well. Houston beats us up again later in the year. You have a nice win against Cincinnati, and you think, hey, things are getting back on track. We have a shot at a first-round bye in the conference tournament. All we have to do is finish strong on the road against Tulane and Tulsa. Tulane just blows the doors off us again, and then you lose the heartbreaker in Tulsa where you blow a lead and they hit you on the last second shot. The game against South Florida, man, I thought we were going to lose.
Yep.
I thought the whole time we were going to lose. And I said it, I don't know how many times, if that's a close game in the final 5 minutes, we're in trouble. It was a very close game. When they took those 2 shots at the end, I thought for sure they were both going in. We lucked out, ended up escaping on that one, but then Memphis, the better team, puts us out of our misery. The team, to me, did not meet expectations. And there's going to be a lot of turnover on this team going forward. I don't know where we're going to be at this point next year.
So it sounds like you're C minus, D.
Oh yeah, grade. You want a grade? Yeah, I'll give you a C.
Okay.
It's a C because, the way it started, it looked like this was a tournament team. Preseason, to me, I thought it was a tournament team. Non-conference schedule, I still said we were a tournament team. Look, the loss to Auburn, you can accept that. We played okay in that game for the most part until about the last 6-7 minutes. They kind of opened up the lead on us. But Auburn was a very good team. The game against Oklahoma, we were right in there at home. We could have won that one. So we're playing well against good teams. And then I don't know what happened to us in some of these games. The Cal game, the Wichita State game, Memphis game, we didn't even belong on the court with them when we lose by 28. So it was a frustrating season, to say the least.
Yeah, I think C is a fair grade, maybe even C minus, because I know everyone wants to jump down your throat when you say, well, hey, 18-12, 9-9 overall, that's a darn good season, yada, yada, yada. But I think going into it, we all looked at this squad, and even after the first couple weeks of the season, and said at the very least, this is a fringe bubble type of NCAA tournament team where maybe not going to be one of those hey, we're absolutely going to get in, but maybe we're one of those first 4 in, last 4 out panel type teams throughout the year. They're going to have ups and downs, but looks like we have the talent we need and we can put it together when we have to. And then there are just times where it just didn't happen, and it just looked like this team never really gelled together. Looked like nobody ever really stepped into that leadership role and really kind of became that on-court leader, that person that kind of dragged everyone together. Isaiah Adams, for whatever reason, seemed to regress from his freshman year. We did not get as much out of him as we wanted to. Streaky shooting from Darren Green Jr., Darius Perry, and Brandon Mahan certainly had its ups and downs this year. They had some games where they were just on fire and could not miss. And then we had some games where, you saw a bunch of 2 for 14s and 3 for 13s on the board. Bakke was okay down low, but I think we thought he'd be more of a force. CJ Walker's offensive game showed a little improvement, but did not open up as much as we thought. And before you know it, Mike, this thing kind of gets off the rails, and it feels like we didn't quite know how to get it back. If we weren't going to be bombs away from 3, it felt like we really didn't have a lot of options to play with on the offensive side. And you said something crucial. Here's the interesting thing that's going to face us next year. Our top 5 scorers are all gone. Darren Green Jr., 13-3. Probably going to declare. Now, if he comes back, maybe, who knows, but I imagine he'll test the water. He may come back, though. Darius Perry, Brandon Mahan, CJ Walker, another guy. Is he going to test the water? What's he going to do? And then you have Bakke, who's also going to go as a senior. You have Isaiah Adams. Is he going to stay? The transfer portal's open these days. Kids are leaving left and right. Did he enjoy his experience this season? Is he going to look for greener pastures? Darius Johnson, the bright side. He definitely played better. He's got to work on his outside shot a little bit. We got Ty Freeman, who we didn't see as much as I think we could have. He played well in Sparks. Jameel Reynolds looked like he played well in Sparks. But this is going to be a rebuilding era, and that's where this gets tricky. Is this could have been the year? So I think a C to C minus is probably the appropriate grade, all those different factors considered.
Yeah, what drove me nuts is how one-dimensional we were as an offensive team, relying on the 3. And yeah, it's beautiful when you're hitting those shots, but when you're not, man, it gets ugly. And then in the games where you're not hitting your shots, we were not a great defensive team. And that's something that the Johnny Dawkins teams usually pride themselves on. His first few years here, they were a lockdown defensive team. That was not the case this year. I didn't see us out hustling other teams. I didn't see us diving on the court for balls and out rebounding anybody and muscling people. That didn't happen at all year. Somehow our free throw shooting started out fantastic early in the year and then went down the tubes here, especially down late in the season. We know what happened at the Tulsa game. So I don't know what happened there. Did the team just kind of pack it in at some point? 500 in this conference. Let's face it, it's not a great conference. There was 2 teams made the tournament, right? Memphis and Houston. And Houston was a lock to make the tournament all year. SMU is an NIT team. They were solid. I think they played better than what was expected, but overall, this conference is not great. We're not talking about a 4 or 5 big team conference here. So to expect to be in the top half, I don't think is that great of an expectation, and we really were not. We were number 6 out of 11. So that's the bottom half of the conference for me. And I don't think it's good enough. And it needs to get better, and I don't know how it's going to get better unless you're telling me that these freshman twins come in next year and just set the world on fire. I don't know what's going to happen. I think we may take another step back next year, unless something happens in the transfer portal that I'm not ready for.
Well, to be fair, P.J. Edwards and Xavier Rhodes did not play at all this season. Those were 2 other freshmen that came in. So in theory, they redshirt. So they come in next year as redshirt freshmen to add to the team. But you're right, Mike. You got to look at the roster and say, okay, how does this thing kind of reshape itself next year? Losing a bunch of these guys. Obviously, the transfer portal is one way to do that. And who knows who falls in your lap in that respect. I'm sure there's a number of kids who are going to be shopping around. Who knows who we lose into the portal, right? Like I said, Isaiah Adams, if I told you tomorrow that I heard he's going to the portal, would you be shocked by that? Probably not, right? So, you got to wonder. And I think that's the other thing that was interesting is I think going into the season, we misassumed that this team had a lot of depth, that we would have a bunch of guys, that we'd be playing like 10 guys a game. And we got in that same space down the end, Mike, where we were really trusting the same like 5 or 6 guys, and that was pretty much it. And Tony Johnson leaves the team 4 games in, is never heard of again. Sean Mobley 2 games in, who never plays again. What happened to those 2 guys? And obviously, I assume their time at UCF is done. So the depth issues really kind of struck us again this year. And then you hit an injury, right? You get a Brandon Mahan out for a couple of games with an ankle. I know Darren Green had to miss the game against Tulane. So he goes down. Isaiah Adams obviously goes down in I think in the Tulsa game, and he doesn't play in the conference tournament. So we just didn't have enough depth to overcome it, Mike. But so in your mind, we're a C this year, but you say the arrow is pointing which direction, up or down?
I got to say, the way that the season ended up going, it was going in a downward direction. We played our best basketball early in the year. And we played some of our worst basketball here down the stretch. The last 2 games with a chance to get a first-round bye, let that go right through our hands, did not play well on the road. The team didn't play well on the road all year long. But I have to say, it's not pointing up, right? The trajectory of this program is going backwards, and it has been for the last few years since we made the tournament. Losing record, you have the COVID year, and now this year, 500 in conference play. And that's just not going to get it done, man. And I hate to say it, but something's got to go. I mean, something's going to happen. Something has got to change. If expecting the team to get any better, something's got to happen.
Well, so let's pretend right now your phone rings, and it's Terry Mohadra, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, Mike? Good to see you again. We had a good time down at the Funky Buddha in Fort Lauderdale. Great to catch up with you again. Hey, Mike, can I just get your opinion really quickly? I got to do something with men's basketball. Give me one thing you think I can do to try to make us better. What would you legitimately tell Timo? What do you think is legitimately a possibility, an option? Obviously, right, there's pie in the sky stuff, right? Oh, go recruit, go give so-and-so a bag of cash, right? But what's legitimately something that you would tell Terry Mohadra right now, hey, you should look into this to try to improve men's basketball?
Look, everybody talks about how we need financial backing. We need people to invest in the program. Nobody's getting excited about this basketball team. We need something to get excited about, right? And I think Gus Malzahn did that. Well, here we go, comparing football.
Oh, Jesus. More editing. Okay.
It was an injection of life into the program where, when Heupel was here, that last season of Heupel, people started turning on him a little bit, and people were starting to wonder. I bet you if Heupel would have came back for another year, you may have seen a drop in donations. You may have seen a drop in season ticket holders. And right now, the basketball program's at a point where it's starting to get a little stale, to be honest. And, we need an injection of life. Now, does that mean go fire Johnny and hire somebody that's going to do that for you? Maybe, but I don't think that's an option right now. That's the problem, is we can't afford to do that. So we may be stuck here for another year or so, but something has got to change. The fan base needs to get excited for something, and it's just not happening with the status quo. If Johnny comes back again next year, who's excited? Who's going to line up to buy season tickets to watch this team play? I just don't see it happening. And then that means, hey, there's another year of us not investing in the program, not being serious about basketball, and that's just another year wasted gone by.
And particularly when we're on the Big 12 clock, which is going to be a much tougher basketball conference to be in. And so you think through what would get excitement, right? So obviously wins would get a ton of excitement, right? How do you get the wins? So your options are either A, players. We need to find a way to bring in some marquee guys. And again, basketball is really tough because you don't see as much huddle film out there. I don't know that recruiting is as important to the fan bases as it is in football. So you really have to, like, because we're getting a 5-star kid, right? And we should be like, oh, if this was football, I mean, we'd be throwing this kid a parade. I mean, like, we'd already be, everyone would be going to his house and moving him up there personally from Fort Lauderdale. But in basketball, we kind of go, oh, yeah, this kid should be good. So either we need like a really good, like, Zion-type player, which is probably not on the radar unless, again, there's a bag of cash. We need a really good team that gel together and start going on a run and then hope to capitalize on that mid-season. Or you need that splash of a hire, right? Like, and I know I'm going to say the word or the words, and everyone's going to freak out. You're going to need like a Rick Pitino type hire that you bring in, and people go, "Oh my goodness, Rick Pitino's there!" Like, and that gets people excited. They're going to games. They want to kind of look into things. And I'm not saying Rick Pitino's the guy. I'm just throwing a name out there that would probably we're not getting Coach K, right? I assume. So, like, who else is out there? What's another name? Frank Martin just got fired from South Carolina, but is he really going to be a name? Does Gus recruit Bruce Pearl to come over here? Maybe that gets you a name, although that he's also got some baggage. So there's very few ways to get that excitement. I think that's the tricky line you have to kind of balance is you need wins to get excitement. And you need wins to build that foundation because you need that consistency that's going to get people there. To get wins, there's only so many options, and not all of them are good paths, and not all of them lead to making everybody happy with some of the decisions that have to be made.
That's right. I said Rick Pitino on this show, 2 months ago? It was the first name that came to my head. And yeah, that would get the attention of a lot of the fan base. Maybe not all for positive reasons, but I guarantee you, he comes in here with his bagmen, and that's what we need. And let's be honest, college basketball is all about paying the players. I think that's out there. It's been out there. It's been known forever. The best teams pay their players to come here. It's actually legal now. Mm-hmm. We can do it and not have to be scared of getting caught for any violations or anything. Rick Pitino comes in here with the guys that he's had in his pocket for the last 30 years around college basketball. I think that makes a big difference. And like I said, it only takes 2-3 blue chip players come in here and you're in Memphis. That's what Memphis has done the last couple of years under Anthony Hardaway. They brought in Hardaway and all of a sudden the recruiting has skyrocketed. They have some of the best talent in the conference and here they are in the tournament again this year. That's what needs to be done. And I know Memphis, before everybody jumps down my throat, yes, they have a lot bigger basketball following. They have a lot more people that go to their games. They've been doing basketball for a lot longer than us. I understand that. But the point is that there is reason for excitement there. And here, I don't know what the reason for excitement is. Well, I'm not excited about basketball at all.
Again, take away resources, and I know I'm not allowed to say that because I'm going to get killed for that. But if you take away resources for just 1 second, and you just said Penny Hardaway, right? Why do people go to play for Penny Hardaway? That was his first time as a college coach. It's not like he had an illustrious coaching career. He had been a coach in high school. He'd been well known in the Memphis area, and he goes to Memphis, his alma mater, becomes the head coach. Why did that work, or why is he getting these kids, Mike? It's because of the excitement. I want to go play for Penny Hardaway. That's a name I know. That's a guy who I've seen play in the NBA. That's a guy I saw in my hometown, right? That's that excitement factor you're talking about because he had no coaching chops. For all we knew, he was going to be a terrible coach. He might still be a terrible coach. I don't even know. But people are going to say, well, the reason why he's good is because he's got Larry Brown, a former NBA Finals coach, on his bench because they can pay whatever. And so I guess that's what people are going to say are the difference here. But the other thing that kids are looking for, and I'll ask you this question, and this will be off the top of your head, and I think that's actually the way I want this because I don't know the answer either. What's the last guy Johnny Dawkins put in the league?
I don't know. You have to go back to Stanford. Did he do it there?
Is it Taco? I mean, does he count as somebody he put in the league? I mean, BJ played for a little bit but didn't stick, and a lot of the guys are going overseas, right? So I think those are two divergent paths, right? There's the money that's going to be there. We see that. We know that. But or else these guys are going to places where they think they can play for a year because it's one and done now. Play for a year, let me get to the league. Penny Hardaway comes into your living room and says, hey, come play for me. I can make you an NBA star. Here's what I can do, right? Coach K comes in and says, hey, come play for me. I'll make you a star. Look at all these guys. John Calipari. I understand that's not where we're at from a leveling perspective, but Houston's doing that now, right? They're putting guys in the league. Wichita State's putting some guys in the league, right? Who's that guy that Johnny walks in the living room and says, hey, you're thinking about UCF, right? Let me show you a little bit about this player right here. We don't have a lot of those. So I think that's the other element is we're going to need at some point to build that foundation. And from what we're told by everybody who wants to talk, it's only because we don't have any money that we don't have that foundation. But somehow that excitement has to be built. And right now, to your point, all our hopes are on this Hendricks kid from Calvary down in Fort Lauderdale, that he's the next real deal, or that Isaiah Adams is going to find some sort of a rebirth and come back for a junior year and just be a stud, or that Ty Freeman's just going to light the world on fire. I mean, that's really what we're kind of, or that one of Coach K's 5 stars, one of the 17 5-stars on the Duke bench, says, I had enough of this, and comes to UCF and just balls out, right? That's the other element that we need. And right now, to your point, that path doesn't seem super, super likely. Not impossible, but not super likely.
The guys you mentioned, Taco and BJ, Johnny did not bring those guys here. Those guys were here when he got here.
Fair.
All right? So who are the guys he brought here that have done anything? Now, Isaiah Adams was Mr. Florida basketball, right? He came in, and he went backwards in year 2. Is that coaching, or is that just the kid, something's going on? Is that a sophomore slump? What is the explanation for that? I'm not sure. But, the way this has gone, it's just not looking good. And you talk about Anthony Hardaway. He's never coached a game before, right? All of a sudden, he comes right in, and he's recruiting like his hair is on fire, like Gus Malzahn. What about, here we go, the football example Jesus. Again. Deion Sanders, never coached before either, right? He's getting the number 1 recruit in the country.
Must
Why?
be the money.
Exactly. Well, the money, yes, and the name.
Yeah.
You bring a name in, and it does wonders for your program. It really does. And maybe it's not even somebody that's going to be here for 10 years. Maybe people look at Johnny as it's safe. You feel safe with Johnny, right? It's the girlfriend that is not going to leave you, so you stick it out with her, and you hang out, and you feel good. But maybe we need somebody that may be here, like a Scott Frost, come in, flip the program on its head, get it going in the right directions, out of here in 2-3 years. But all of a sudden, there's life in the program. And that's exactly what Frost did to the football program that was about to go in the same direction that basketball is going right now. So that's what I'm saying. If we're going to do something here, it's got to be something to inject life into this program. And I don't expect it to happen this year because obviously we know the whole story. But it's got to happen at some point. And when that does happen, then, I think we'll start seeing some changes around here.
Yeah, to your point, we've got to find that excitement, right? Whatever that is, it hasn't manifested itself in any really consistent level on the court. Call it resources, call it coaching, call it players, call it player development. All that stuff may be actually intertwined together. But Timo's certainly going to have to keep an eye on where we're going from a basketball standpoint. Or I guess we just say to ourselves, hey, we're just not a basketball school. We're going to trot the balls out every couple of days. We're going to keep playing, hope we win some games. But if we don't, cool. But hey, Kansas is going to come by, and we're going to play them, and we're going to see Oklahoma State, and Baylor's going to come in. I guess if that's where we want to be at, we can. But I think at some point, Timo's going to have to sit down and say, what do I really need to do? And it seems unlikely that a lot of large donors are going to step in and go, hey, I want to help, right? Everything you're seeing now is really slanted towards football. I mean, Timo put out that huge plan. Nothing about basketball, nothing about any arena upgrades. It seemed like it was all geared towards football. Shareholder society stuff, a lot of that's tweeted out by some of the football program. We finally just got our first mission control athlete, Darren Green, after the season, by the way, is on that platform now. So something's going to have to give, and I guess Timo's going to have a tough decision to make at some point. But I agree with you. I think C minus is probably the right grade. And we'll stay tuned. We'll see what happens. Again, I think Darren Green maybe has a decision he's going to make or think about. C.J. Walker may have a decision to make. Isaiah Adams may have to decide if he wants to stay. So there will be some influx here on the basketball team.
Yep. And, sometimes change is not a bad thing. Obviously, the team that we have right now is not good enough. So if that means change over 60% of the roster and see what happens from there, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. We finish 8th instead of 6th, and we're still not in advance, and we're still not in the NIT. We're still, we're nothing in basically a nothing conference, and it's only going to get worse as we move up to the Big 12.
Well, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will, Mike. But what did get me excited today is Gus Malzahn met the media. Spring football practice begins on Tuesday. Gus met the media, answered a bunch of questions, Mike. Some of the highlights from his presser I'll kind of go through quickly here. He talked about guys who are not going to be playing. So Jared Baker, Jarvis Ware, Quadric Bullard, and Riker Casey all will not be participating in spring practice. And then Malachi Lawrence, R.J. Harvey, and Terence Lewis, he the five-star transfer linebacker from Maryland, will be practicing on a limited basis, Mike. So right off the bat, any concern with these injuries, any issues, anything that kind of catches you with the names that are associated with maybe either not playing or limited playing time?
No. I mean, R.J. Harvey is the one big name, I guess, that you were wondering how he was going to rebound from last year's injury. Take it easy with him. No need to rush him back in the spring. He's still going to be practicing a little, so that's fine. Terence Lewis, we'd like to see a little bit out of him, but same deal. He's a young kid. He's got a lot of career left ahead of him, so no need to rush him back just yet either. The other guys, it is what it is. As long as we don't add to that list in the next month here during practice, then the spring will be a success.
Well, a lot of what Gus talked about, Mike, also was that this is a whole different year than last year. Obviously, if you recall last year, Gus had only been really on campus for less than, 3-4 weeks by the time spring practice rolled around. So he was cobbling together a staff and trying to get some things done quickly. Obviously, a lot of the talk this year is, he's got a full year under his belt. He's had a full opportunity to plan, have a full coaching staff, even though with some turnover. And he talked about Chip Lindsey and then Grant Hurd, the new wide receivers coach. But he seemed to be very optimistic, Mike, that with that time, with having a year under his belt, that this would be a different kind of spring and that he and the staff felt more prepared for this spring than they did last year.
Right. He came into last season never having seen a lot of these guys play football before. He didn't know what he had on his team. He had to evaluate everybody. Now he's already past that step. He knows the roster. He knows the weaknesses. He knows the strengths. And now he can start preparing the team for the season more than just evaluating his team. So he even said they're going to take it a lot slower this year. They're only practicing 3 days a week instead of 4 days a week like they did last year, and doing a lot more install and getting everybody focused on the season. So he knows what he's doing. Gus has been around the block a few times. I got to trust that he's going to take this team and get it ready for opening day. And, the spring is what it is. The spring is, there's a lot of questions to be answered. Who's going to be a starting quarterback and all that stuff. But I like the way he's approaching this thing so far.
Well, he said open competition, every position. Like every position, there's an open competition. Do you believe that?
No, of course not.
Yeah, of course.
Every coach says that every time. But, Ryan O'Keefe is a starting wide receiver. You telling me that's an open position?
Yes, apparently
Isaiah
it is.
Bowser is he starting running back on his team? Is that an open position? You can go down the line. Matt Lee, is he starting center? Yes. So there's a bunch of positions that are not open. He's going to say that because if he doesn't say that, then if he singles out one single position, then it just kind of draws more eyeballs there. Obviously, he knows the situation with the quarterback. Mikey, he already said he's going to be the first one out there. He's going to get the first snap of spring. So you want to consider that the starting quarterback for right now? You can consider it whatever you want. But, yeah, that's just coach speak. I don't believe that it's open position. But the quarterback position is open. I do believe that. So we'll see what happens from there.
He talked about conditioning. Again, last year, the strength and conditioning staff didn't have a ton of time with the players last year, just on the truncated hiring schedule. He's talking about this year that they've done some different things. They've had 6 weeks. Some guys have gotten stronger, faster. Some guys have gained weight. Some guys had to lose some weight. That they've been really strategic in those areas. Mike, we saw a ton of injuries last year. It's hard to put all of that on strength and conditioning. Some of those are just freak injuries. It just kind of happens. But how important in your mind, and you're somebody who takes care of yourself and is into fitness, how important in your mind is the strength and conditioning element of kind of what this team is going to be, and where, I guess, is there areas where that's needed to be improved so that we don't have guys dropping like flies next year?
Yeah, definitely. It has a big effect on the season. And it depends on how you build your team. We've seen the different philosophies in the Coach Heupel, the way they trained, the way the offensive linemen were training in the offseason, obviously moving at a very fast pace, more of a conditioning style. And now with under Coach Dawson, maybe a little more emphasis on power and all that stuff. Here's a power running game that we have with Bowser. So it definitely is a big impact on the program. Staying healthy, to me, that's a crapshoot. I mean, look at my favorite sports teams, right? Professional teams, the Yankees, the Giants. These are teams that probably spend more money on off-season programs and conditioning and all that stuff, and they seem to have more injuries than any teams I can ever remember in my life. The Yankees have 10 guys on the DL at any given time for the last 5 years, and I can't explain it. We've had Coach O'Leary on here before and talked about it. He's a big Yankee fan. He can't explain it either. So I think a lot of it is luck, or bad luck in this case. So I'm not really sure how to explain the conditioning program, but as long as these guys are getting better, and that's the goal, getting better a little bit each day, that's all we can really ask.
Kudos for the Coach O'Leary name drop there. We also learned that Gus is a fan of the women's basketball team. He told the media today that he texted Coach Dave the other night and told her y'all got the it factor and that they have a lot of confidence and momentum, Mike. And let's start some controversy here on the show. Let's get some ratings up. He said he told her she's a real basketball coach. Shots fired at Johnny Dawkins? Huh? No, maybe?
I didn't even think about it that way. I mean, unless he's telling Johnny you're not a real basketball coach. Right?
Controversy.
But, Coach Abe has done a fantastic job. There's nothing – you can't find anybody on UCF campus to say a bad word about Coach Abe, and it's well-deserved. Her program has gone up and gotten better every year. Last season – in the championship game, lost this year, came back with a fire in their belly and took down the whole thing. So kudos to her. And, now the next step for her, you got to do it in the tournament. That's it. If we go to the tournament again and they lose a game to the Gators, and it depends how they lose too. If they lose and get humiliated, then, I'm not going to say the words hot seat, but it would put a bad taste in everybody's mouth to end the season. But I don't expect that to happen. I expect your team to come out and fight like they have all year.
By the way, spring football is here. We're excited. Gus announced that they'd be practicing on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So those will be the 3 practice days. No word if there's going to be any of those open practices this year. So not sure if that'll be a thing. But Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday will be the practice schedule, all leading up to the spring game on April 16th, Mike. Let's take a quick break here, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to hit you with some charge-on, charge-offs. It's a UCF, Sons of UCF favorite, and we're going to dust that thing off, Mike. I got charge-on, charge-offs for you. Everybody sit tight. We're going to do a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Sons of UCF.
This is UCF head football coach Gus Malzahn, and you should listen to the Sons of UCF like your hair is on fire. Go Knights and charge on.
All right, it's award-winning, and it's back by popular demand, Mike. It's a rousing game of charge on, charge off. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read you a statement, and you tell me whether you charge on with the statement, you agree with it, or you charge off with the statement, meaning that you disagree with it. A lot of these are centered around spring practice starting and all the good things that come with that, Mike. So are you ready for charge on, charge off?
I have never been so ready for anything in my life.
Wow. And behind the scenes, Mike does not know what these say, by the way. These have not been pre-rehearsed. So Mike is listening to this for the first time, as are you now, unless you're listening to it a second time. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I just lied to everybody. I am not ready for any of these questions. I don't know what any of them are. So.
All right, here we go.
Hit me with them anyway.
Mike, charge on, charge off. Mikey Keene getting the first rep of spring practice is a big deal. Charge on, charge off.
I'd say charge on.
Okay.
I think it's a big deal. Just because, the way he ended the season last year, he's given the opportunity now to say, hey, this is your team, so go run with it. You have the chance right now. It's your team to lose. And Gus has given him that first shot, though I don't think he could have given anybody else the ball first, right? If he would have came in and said Plumlee's getting the first snap, then you have a big controversy on your hands. Yeah, obviously, I think it has to be Mikey Keene. So if you look at it that way, then I guess it's not a big deal, but it really is, because the way he ended the season, the teammates are on his side. Everybody's pulling for Mikey. We're hearing that he has stepped his game up here in the last couple months. So let's see what he can do now.
I actually agree. I think it's a big deal. I think it's a charge on, because I think for whatever you think of the way Mikey Keene played, and clearly there are some games where, he just did enough to get us by and made a play or two, which is what we needed. He clearly had the respect of his teammates. He clearly had the locker room behind him and had a lot of support. I think it's a good sign of Gus sort of saying, hey, Mikey, we still believe in you. You're still a part of this team. And I think that his teammates probably think he deserves and earns the right to get those first snaps based on what he did last year, because it sounds like he's the kind of kid everyone wants to rally behind. So I think it's a good on you from Gus to say, hey, Mikey, this is still, we appreciate what you've done, and, things aren't necessarily changing right off the bat. Obviously an open competition, but I think the team appreciates that, will appreciate that. So I think it's a charge on for Mikey Keene getting the first reps, Mike. But Gus,
now, how long does he get those first reps for? Is it going to be the first week, and then somebody else is starting to practice in the first reps? That'll be a big telltale sign going forward.
I'm sure they'll do that rotation thing, right? Well, they'll rotate a guy here, rotate a guy there. I think you'll probably get a better sense for it towards the later end of a spring ball. But that's the next charge on, charge off. So Gus says he hopes to have a better idea of where they stand on the quarterback room, that all 5 guys will get opportunities to play, Mike. So charge on, charge off. We'll know who QB1 is by the end of spring practice. Charge on or charge off?
Charge off. We will not know. Meaning us and the people listening to this program. We will not know. But Gus will know. I think Gus will have it in his head going into fall, coming out of spring, who the quarterback is going to be. And it may not be set in stone, but he's going to have a very good idea based on this next month of practices of where this team is headed and who's leading this team. So charge off, we're not going to know, but Gus and his staff will have a very good idea.
Yeah, I gotta think that he'll have a depth chart, maybe an internal one that's not released to the media or that's not really shared outside of the football building. But I gotta imagine the whole goal of spring practice is to start to set your depth chart, figure out where you have some opportunities to maybe improve or where you want to see some things differently. So I gotta imagine he'll have a depth chart. I wouldn't think he'd want this going into fall where it's still like, rep after rep, play after play, rotate after rotate for all these guys. I would think he'd want to have that figured out. So I suspect he'll have a depth chart, probably written in pencil, that he doesn't share outside, that has a QB1 listed. So I do think we probably won't know unless, it gets leaked out or somebody posts a picture of a whiteboard they're not supposed to. But I imagine inside the building, they'll have that figured out by the end of spring.
Yeah, that's right. So, it's going to be a tight kept secret. He kind of opened himself up to it of saying, ask me again at the end of the spring and I'll have a better answer. He lied to everybody today. He's not going to have a better answer. He may come out with like one of these 1A, 1B type things. I don't think we're going to have an actual answer until probably the week of the first game, or when somebody trots out there to start the game. Is when we're going to find out.
All right, well, he did say that all 5 guys will get an opportunity to play. So do the math with me. That's Mikey Keene, it's John Rice Plumlee, it's Thomas Castellanos, it's Parker Navarro, and I guess that's Joey Gatewood as number 5 because the walk-on kid won't be here until the fall. So I think those are the 5, Mike. So those are the 5 he's referring to. So charge on, charge off. One guy in the QB room right now today will not be a QB in the fall. Charge on or charge off?
Oh, I think that's an easy charge on. I'm looking directly at Gatewood. Right?
Is he looking back at you?
Probably not. But, I think the writing's on the wall with Gatewood, even towards the end of last season, where Parker Navarro kind of stole his role there, and especially down by the goal line. Navarro was a lot better at it than he was. So Gatewood is an athlete, and I think he can play a little tight end if needed. Maybe find a different role for him. I don't think quarterback is where it's going to be for him this year or at UCF at all. Maybe he's a transfer portal guy at some point again. I don't know. But no, I do not believe that every one of them will be a quarterback going into the fall.
Let me throw the wrench into this. There's no way that non-quarterback is John Rice Plumlee, correct?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you can call him whatever you want, but he's going to be taking the snaps, and whether he throws the ball or not, I don't know. But he may be the Wild Knight quarterback himself, but he'll definitely be listed as a quarterback on the depth chart.
And not only that, so let's just live in a world where Castellanos wins the QB job, and Mikey Keene becomes QB2. Does just John Rice Plumlee go back to receiver? Do they do something unique with him at that point? I think it's an outside possibility, but that's kind of what I want to get the question in here is, will there be a quarterback in that room that's not a quarterback come fall? I assume, to your point, Gatewood would be that guy. Unless it's Parker Navarro. I don't know where else he would go, though. I mean, we saw Quadri Jones, who I would not have thought would be a traditional receiver, move to receiver. Unless they try to make Parker do something. And it seems like Gus just has a soft spot for Gatewood. I don't know what it is, but he seems to clearly have an affinity for him. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. But I agree with you. I don't think all 5 of these guys are listed as QBs in the fall.
Plumlee being a receiver for the last couple seasons over at Ole Miss does kind of make you think about it. If he comes out and he looks like Brandon Wimbush in the spring and he cannot complete a pass, then I guess, yes, it is possible that he can just be moved over as a receiver and still be utilized in the offense. We know that he has speed, and he's just another one of these guys like Ryan O'Keefe, just get the ball in his hands, whether you have to throw it to him or pitch it to him or whatever you got to do, hand it off to him. He could be a weapon, whether he's a quarterback or not.
This one's probably an easy question because you can pretty much take the field on this one, Mike, but a true freshman will get a significant amount of playing time this year. Charge on or charge off?
Yeah, I have to say charge on.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be on the defensive side of the ball. We know all the names that are coming in. Nikai Martinez, the Henderson twins. Is it Henderson?
Yep.
Am I confusing that? That's basketball.
No,
Basketball
Henderson's football.
What are the basketball twins' names?
Hendricks.
Are they Henderson?
Hendricks.
Hendricks. There we go. Okay, so the Henderson twins. Terence Lewis is considered a freshman, right?
Technically, yes.
Okay, so one of those guys is going to get plenty of playing time. So I have to say yes on that.
So there's no way Jordan McDonald at running back, who, by the way, is listed as the same height and 5 pounds lighter than Isaiah Bowser. And obviously there's no way that it's Castellanos, correct?
Well, I mean, Jordan McDonald can definitely find a lot of playing time. And we've said it a bunch of times now. Isaiah Bowser has to prove that he can stay healthy for an entire season. But McDonald, all the tape I've seen on this kid, he looks great coming in. So I can see him getting a lot of playing time. I can see him getting a lot of mop-up duty early and, forcing his way in. Remember, it was Greg McCrae kind of forced his way onto the team, for playing time. Killens did it as a freshman. We've seen running backs come in and do it as a freshman. And running back is probably the one position – it's probably the easiest position to come in and make an impact as a freshman because it's more of a reactionary position, right? You get the ball, you hit the hole, and you go. There's not as much studying and all that stuff. I'm sure there is, but not as much preciseness as maybe a receiver running routes. So if he can come in and he can block, then I definitely think he can get some playing time.
All right. You mentioned one of the names already, Mike. The fact that we are relying heavily, I think, on 2 guys on the defensive side of the ball who have never played a snap of college football, defensive tackle Lee Hunter and linebacker Terence Lewis. The fact that we're relying on them to be big parts of the defense should be a worry. Charge on or charge off?
I'll say charge on. You definitely need experience on defense. You're not going to have a roster full of freshmen coming in and expect to have a great defense. But, we have other guys that have plenty of experience that will help these guys in their growth process. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, but it could definitely come back to haunt you down the road if these guys don't have that experience. But they're going to learn as they go. And everybody has to get their first start at some point, right? All the veterans at one point were freshmen. So these guys are going to learn on the job. I think they'll be fine. But, it could be cause for concern if that kind of just speaks to the depth on this team. If all the freshmen are coming in and playing right away, what does that say about the upperclassmen on this team? Yeah. Obviously they're not as good.
Well, I think particularly those 2 positions, right? We're thin. We're very thin at linebacker, and we keep talking about Terence Lewis and 5-star and all the things that we think he can do. And again, D tackle, we're certainly lost some depth, losing Cam Good to the transfer portal, and so we realize we have some needs there. Lee Hunter, again, highly recruited kid, did not play. So we're really relying on 2 kids in 2 key positions without a lot of depth and saying that, hey, we're going to be great because of that. And we very well may, by the way. And then these two kids may be phenomenal. And I'll play this tape back in a year from now and sound like a complete jackass. But it's also, we've never seen either one of them put their hand in the dirt for a single play of college football. And that's what's a tad interesting when you think about it is, we'll figure it out in spring ball. I think that's a lot of what spring ball is about. But, I mean, if these two kids aren't ready to play for whatever reason, that's a fairly, large deficit to make up at both of those positions that I don't know how Gus, accomplishes that unless he dips back into the portal.
Yep, and that's what another great thing about this spring practice is. So Gus will know coming out of spring. And remember, just because we're through spring doesn't mean we can't keep adding guys to the roster.
Yeah,
the portal is open at all times. So that's what he's going to use these next few weeks to determine. Do we need more help at those positions? And if so, Gus will not be afraid to go out and get some.
Great segue to my next one, Mike. Over 2.5 guys on UCF's roster right now will hit the portal after spring. Do you charge on or charge off?
Ooh, 2.5. So 3 of them we got to go.
3 got to go.
In today's day and age, I'll say over. Charge on, is it over? Because you're going to get guys that they'll see the writing on the wall. They're not going to get the playing time here. And, they gave it a shot, but they're going to look for somewhere else to go. There's got to be at least probably a guy on offense, a guy on defense. Look at all the running backs we have on this roster right now. If everybody comes out of spring healthy, one guy maybe realizing they're not going to get the touches, he'll be gone. Maybe we have a bunch of receivers here that think they should be able to play. If one of them sees that they're not going to be in the rotation, they're not in the top 5, 6, they may be out of here. So, yeah, I'd say, and we're not alone in this.
Yep.
I think pretty much every team in the country is probably going to have an average of 3-4 guys hit the portal after spring practice.
Well, yeah, frankly, we want that, right? Because to your point, we want to be able to go out and see who's available and fill needs and positions. But obviously, losing guys is tough, and we'll freak out as a fan base whenever these guys, come out. I wasn't sure if 3 was the right number. I was going to go with 1.5, making it 2. But I feel like I'd give you more of a challenge. And I do think there's a high probability that you see, 2 or 3 guys who decide, to your point, hey, I'm fourth string on the depth chart in this position. We brought in this kid. He's playing over me right now. Hey, I don't like my new coach. It's not working out. For whatever reason, I think you'll see those options. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's the over on that one too, Mike. Speaking of defensive tackle depth, a surprising announcement today. Friend of the show, Austin Camden, who essentially announced his retirement on Twitter earlier this season, has announced he's pulling a Tom Brady. He's coming back. He's going to rejoin UCF. He's going to be a part of the team again this year, Mike. If you recall, we had Austin on the show or after he left, and we asked him specifically if he thought a current player on UCF's team would want to become a correspondent for us here at the Sons of UCF as part of some sort of an NIL sponsorship deal. He said he absolutely would have done it, that he would have loved it, and he thinks other guys will too. Well, now he's back, Mike. So charge on, charge off. We should go after Austin Camden as our official Sons of UCF spokesman on the current UCF football team.
Yeah, Austin was a very nice kid, and if he's willing to do it, and he's willing to do it for the amount we're about to pay him, which is probably next to nothing. Maybe a UCF tumbler maybe headed his way. But sure, why not?
Okay.
I'll charge on with him.
Well, I'll have our people call his people and see if we can get that hooked up at some point. I don't know how Gus is going to feel about that, but we will see what we can do there, Mike. And my last one, we talked a little bit about John Rice Plumlee. We know he's not going to be able to play baseball this year, although he's still traveling around with the team, and I assume he's still a part of practice and whatnot. But I assume he's going to be a full participant in football. That wasn't really asked today, but I assume he will be a full participant. So I don't know if he steps away from baseball during these couple of weeks, if he's going to be with the football team on the the days that they're practicing in baseball and days that they're not. I don't know how that's going to work, Mike. But all told, John Rice Plumlee, if and when he's able to get on the football field and when he gets eligible in baseball, he will go down as the best dual sport player in UCF history. Charge on or charge off?
Oh, man. I have never seen the kid play before except for that highlight film where he ran in about 8 touchdowns and he threw 1. So, and I've never seen him play baseball, but apparently he must have been pretty good. Ole Miss is a very good program. But he's got a long way to go. And I think we're about to play the replay of or maybe, I don't know where in the show this is going to be. Maybe we already played it. But
we have not played it yet. How's that?
Dee Brown is probably the guy when it comes to two-sport athletes, right? I believe he's a Baseball Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer in general, I guess. I think it's right. For all, but yes.
I think more so for baseball.
Clearly.
But how many years we get of Plumlee here? 3? If he stays for how many years of eligibility? Yes.
I think he's got 2 to 3. Yeah. COVID year. I'm sure he's a red shirt someplace in there. He's probably got 2 or 3 somewhere laying around.
He's got a shot. He's got a shot if he comes in and he does great. The first couple of years, he could end up being the best two-sport athlete, but he's got a long way to go. He may never even see the baseball field if he comes out here and is the starting quarterback. Say he comes in as the quarterback this year, wins the job outright, has a fantastic season. Teams, I don't know, 11-1. We go to a BCS game. Does Gus even allow him to play baseball the next year? Who the heck knows? So,
that's interesting. That's a business decision time, because is he an NFL quarterback? Is he an NFL prospect? Or does he have a better shot of doing something professionally in the baseball world? I mean, that's kind of that Kyler Murray situation, and he's obviously nowhere near as at least pronounced as a football player, a quarterback at least, as Kyler was. But he's going to have that. If that happens, he may have that business decision to make of being like, where's my future? Am I really going to be able to, crack an NFL roster, or am I better suited, tolling in Double-A for a couple of years, making some money doing something I love? We got a long way to go, but he may have to make a business decision at some point.
Yeah, and if that is the decision you make, I think you have to choose baseball just for the odds of making it and for the money. You can get a couple $1 million and never even make it to the major leagues just playing in minors. So, and your career can last a whole lot longer in baseball. It's going to be interesting to see how this kid plays out. Now, I'm glad that he's not with baseball right now. He should be training with the football team now, I would think. Right?
I would assume, but it wasn't really asked specifically. So I would assume that he would basically, I can't play baseball anyway. I love you guys to death, but let me get in the building now, 6-7 days a week and get my lifting in and learn the playbook. And I would hope if he wants a chance to be QB1, I would think Gus would have that wink, like, you're going to be here tomorrow, right? And if he's like, nah, coach, I'm in the cage at 10-10, like, I got a feeling Gus is not going to like that answer.
Mm-hmm. No, he's got to be now. The second that he was declared ineligible to play baseball, he had to be completely focused on football. Well, now, it's cool that he's at the baseball games and he's in the dugouts and all that stuff, whatever. Maybe that doesn't interfere with his training. But now he's got to be focused on football, and especially if he wants to be the quarterback, he needs to be with the team at all times from here on out.
Well, anyway, the correct answer is charge off, Mike. The best dual sport athlete at UCF currently is Dee Brown, and I think John Rice Plumlee has a long way to go to get to Dee Brown, Hall of Famer, by the way, who we were lucky enough to have on the show back in like episode 77, almost 100 episodes ago, Mike, oddly enough. And unfortunately, that interview was wiped off of the internet, but you are in luck because we still have that interview. If you don't know who Dee Brown is, it's not the basketball guy who act like he closed his eyes and dunked. He's a kid who played football, played a bunch of baseball, ended up really choosing the baseball path and having a good career there. But we're gonna let him tell you all about that himself because we're gonna replay that interview for you. It's a fun one. If you don't know who Dee Brown is, hit the Google. Make sure you type in Dee Brown UCF because there's several Dee Browns. But hit the Google, learn about Dee Brown. We're gonna break right here. We come back. We'll tell you more about our new sponsorship, our new partnership, and then you're going to hear from Dee Brown. So Mike and I will be right back. You Google Dee Brown and let us know what you find.
This is UCF Athletic Director Terry Mahajer, and in my spare time when I'm not on TikTok, I'm listening to Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Go Knights and charge on!
All right, Mike, like we talked about, Dee Brown, UCF Hall of Famer. We're going to replay that in a second, Mike, but we couldn't go too long without reminding all of you out there that support for the Sons of UCF is brought to you exclusively by Manscaped. They are the best men's below-the-waist grooming champion of the world. They offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, that's just got released, Mike, and over 4 million men worldwide are trusting Manscaped. And we have an exclusive offer for you, 20% off, free worldwide shipping. Just use the code SonsOfUCF at manscaped.com and you will get 20% off, Mike. It's a fantastic deal. And let me tell you something really quickly, just a quick little side story here, right? My wife and I have been watching this reality show on Netflix. I won't say the name because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the name as I do the sponsorship read here, right? But it's a dating show where you're dating some people that you didn't know for the first time, right? And there's this one dude on the show that, he's trying to impress these ladies, of course, and he's got this girl and yada, yada, yada. And homeboy's he's got some hair. He's definitely a hairy individual. And I turned to my wife and I was like, what are we doing here? This guy needs some Manscaped, right? Because you can't be going on these dating shows and you can't be like trying to put yourself out there and meet people when you're single and try to get married if you're not taking care of yourself from just a grooming standpoint. So I said to my wife, I'm like, do you think I can get this guy some Manscaped? Because I think he might need it. And she was like, that's a really good idea because, I don't think that's something you want to put out there, Mike. And the good news is if this guy got that Manscaped, it's safe, it's effective. He wouldn't hurt himself. As far as I know, he may be a dumbass, but what do I know? I would think he'd be able to pull off a really good grooming experience because Manscaped makes it so easy. It's sleek, it's safe. You don't want to get in any trouble down there. And with Manscaped, you're not going to figure that out. This Lawnmower 4.0 is the real deal. This guy certainly will take care of himself. I think it'll do him some good, but what do I know, Mike? I know you are a big fan of the 4.0 as well, and I know you are somebody who lives and swears by your Manscaped products.
Yeah, the guy you're talking about must be hairy like animal. I am not as hairy as that guy. I don't even know who he is, but I only grow hair in certain areas. One's on my head and one is down where the Manscaped region is needed. And that the 4.0 works fantastically. I've used it a few times now, and I have zero complaints. Everything has worked exactly as it should. We've gotten a bunch of other testimonials and other bunch of people that have raved about the Manscaped. This one lady here sent in a review saying, I gave my boyfriend Manscaped for Valentine's Day, and so glad that I did. It seriously turned him into a tiger in the sack. Cool. It's almost too good to be true. He's so confident and even stands up taller. Thanks, Manscaped. Hashtag RAR. Hashtag happy girlfriend.
Wow.
That's Caitlin M.
Hi, Caitlin. Congratulations.
Yeah, man. You're going to make everybody happy when you use Manscaped. You're gonna, like she just said, you're more confident. You feel better about yourself, and your girlfriend's going to love it. Nobody wants to be in bed with Sasquatch, right?
Maybe Mrs. Sasquatch. I don't know.
A little hair on the chest, I guess, turns some women on. But you got to take care of yourself down where it counts, and you need the Manscaped to do that. So
you do.
Check out the Lawnmower 4.0 and get back to us. You will not regret it. Use promo code Sons of UCF.
That's it.
You're going to save 20% every time you do that.
Yeah, look, I know people probably hear these ads and they snicker and they laugh, but this is a conversation we need to be having as society. Like, we've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to make sure that, we are in the most optimal shape that we can be in. You take care of other parts of your body, right? You do other things. Why not take care of all parts of your body? And again, don't forget, there's an LED spotlight in this thing. There are additional guard lengths. It's a wireless charging system. This thing is just the real deal. And again, 20% off if you go to manscaped.com. Free shipping. Make sure you go to promo code Sons of UCF at checkout, and you will make sure that you get that 20% off, Mike. And that's how you can support us, and we appreciate Manscaped supporting us as well, and that'll help us. And listen, if you want to DM us some of your stories, we won't share with anybody. We know a lot of you are using it. We know you're probably thinking about it. Maybe you're not talking to your friends, but we need to start a national conversation about taking care of yourself and all aspects of yourself, Mike. But let's get to Dee Brown, who, by the way, you mentioned off the air, Jerome Brown's son. He talks a little bit about growing up with his dad, and obviously his dad was in his life for reasons that you'll learn about. Hall of Fame football player, Hall of Fame baseball player, and just an all-around nice guy, Mike. So everybody sit tight and enjoy hearing from Dee Brown. All right, well, UCF is certainly no shortage of athletes have walked on campus at UCF, but our guest this evening might just be the best athlete we've ever seen on our Orlando campus. And when you learn his story and hear a little bit about what he accomplished at UCF, you'll probably quickly realize why. This guy was a star on the baseball diamond and the football field. That's right. He was a star on both, and also a UCF Hall of Famer. So we're pleased to welcome in Mr. Dee Brown to the show. Dee, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start in the beginning. So obviously, I assume you grew up playing sports a ton, and you were really a two-sport star coming out of Hernando High School. And so as you were thinking about college and where you want to go, was it important for you to play both sports? Were you trying to decide between baseball and football? And I guess, how did you make that decision on what you want to focus on going into college?
Both sports was always the mandatory thing that allowed me to evaluate the schools. When I got it down to 3 schools, it was all about who made me feel comfortable. So as I looked at I looked at University of Tennessee and UCF. Once I visited UCF, there was one thing that Coach Bergman told me that nobody else did, and it was strange at the time because the mom was like, "What?" He told me, "I can't promise you a starting spot, but I'll tell you, I'll give you an opportunity to play both sports." And when he said that, I was like, "This is it. This is the school. I can play both sports with no question about it."
So was UCF?
And that's how I actually.
Was UCF the only school that was going to let you play both sports?
University of Tennessee and Miami was going to allow me, but it wasn't a comfortable or doable situation. A lot of them were, you need to do this, you need to do X, you need to do Y. But when it came to UCF, they're like, no questions asked. Football's in the fall, baseball's in the spring. So it made me feel home as soon as I walked on campus that day.
Well, that had to be a tough one. So for those who don't know, your dad is Jerome Brown. Spent 5 years in the NFL with the Eagles, and he was a first-round pick out of Miami. So did you feel any extra pressure maybe thinking about going down to the U?
I did. I got many phone calls after I committed to UCF about rethinking it, about thinking about the legacy and all these things. But at that time, you got to make that decision for yourself. And what made me feel comfortable about baseball. That was my go-to sport, and a lot of people didn't know that at the time because football was fronting the bill, but baseball was my go-to sport. So it was whatever's going to make me able to play baseball.
So when you got to UCF, how was it decided what your training schedule was going to be like? Did Coach Kruzek and Coach Bergman have to work together on that?
It was pretty much clean line. When we sat down at the table before I even got there, it was football all fall and summer and baseball in the spring. So I had to find time to cut out and drive back to Brooksville to work out with my high school coaches for the baseball side.
All right, well, you stepped right in football. Your freshman year, you saw action in 10 games, and you scored a touchdown. What do you remember most about your freshman year of football?
The learning curve. For those who don't know, Coach Kruzek used to have a Bible of a playbook. And when I walked on campus, it was 2 freshmen, 1 defense, 1 offense, but it was about 20 of us, freshman-wise. And he flat out said, "D, you need to learn this. You got 3 days." And I'm thinking, like, we used to run 3 plays in high school. Now you give me a Bible of a playbook. And literally he was on me from day one about not knowing plays. And honestly, out of all the big stadiums, that was the one thing I remember because he was going to make sure I was prepared day one against Clemson to go out there and play.
Yeah, we talked to Kruzek and a couple other guys from those teams. Every play, there was probably like 3 options on each play, right? Because there was always audibles out there.
Yeah. As a running back, you had to know what the quarterback was thinking and a receiver. I'm like, dude, I'm just a tailback. Now I got to know what a receiver. I probably, up to that time, probably caught 2 balls in my entire life. And I'm like, now I got to go out in a 5-wide set and know exactly where to go. So just imagine how those meetings would go as an 18-year-old messing up in front of 100,000 people. It's just not – didn't go too well.
Well, your first season on the baseball team actually went pretty well. You hit 397, led the team in hits and RBIs. You mentioned earlier baseball was kind of your main sport. What do you think made you so comfortable that first year at UCF on the baseball diamond?
Honestly, Coach Bergman. He was a father figure from day one with me. Like I said, even walking on campus, listening to all the, I don't want to say it in a bad way for college coaches, but back then there was a lot of used car salesman pitches, and he was the only one that was genuine. So I knew he was going to allow me to be that teenager I was. I'm going to mess up. He's going to love on me. I'm going to do great. He's going to love on me. And once you have that, kind of mindset, it's easy to play baseball. It's easy to play any sport.
Well, you had a really good year that year, but the team actually had a really solid year as well. You guys won 41 games, which included the ASUN tournament. Then you head to Tallahassee for the regionals. So in the first game of regionals, you beat the Cows, but then you lose to FSU in round 2, which set up a second showdown with the Cows. But this time, unfortunately, the bad guys won 7-2. What do you think was different for you guys? What was different for you guys from game 1 to game 2 against the Cows?
We didn't have enough depth. That for the first, I should say, all of the 2000 UCF can play with anybody in any sport, but when it came to late in the games, we didn't have the depth. You know what I mean? When you're talking about playing 3 to 4 games in a 3-day period, we didn't have the pitching. We had top end pitching, but we didn't have enough on the staff, and that's just football, baseball. You know, we had great first line, great receivers, but when you start subbing in, that's when we struggled in the 2000s for sure.
Was it more frustrating losing that game to a rival school, particularly in the playoffs?
It sucks losing in a game, to be totally honest. At that time, they were honestly better than us in baseball. So it truly sucked losing to them in general at any time. But it truly sucked when you're that close. And when you look at it as me, I look back and look at those plays. We were a few plays away against FSU that opened the game up. And when I say a few, just one. It was a throw down the third baseline that opened the game up for them. That changed the whole mindset of that weekend. You know what I mean?
Did you guys really go ahead?
I was gonna say, was the rivalry with the Cows back then as big as it is now? Obviously, now there's the war on I-4. There's a big trophy. I mean, you've seen some epic football matches. Was it as big back then in both football? Obviously, we didn't play football, but on the baseball diamond?
It wasn't, because both schools were somehow trying to distance themselves as if, as much as I know UCF is better, USF was trying to distance themselves away from us to say that they were better. You know what I mean? So the rivalry didn't start until actually we left. I think it was like 2008 or so when it became a real rivalry for UCF and USF.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing, because we weren't even playing them back then, football at all.
No, they were trying to keep from both recruiting. Obviously, they didn't look at the long end. They're looking at, we want to remain better. So they didn't even schedule us. There were talks when we first arrived, but it didn't happen until, 2007 or 8, something like that.
All right, well, for you personally, you're the only UCF Knight to score a touchdown and hit a home run in the same year. Do you still brag about that to your buddies? And what feels better?
I don't brag about it, but I hold it in my back pocket to wait that when somebody drops hey, I did this, man. You know, most people can never say that, not to brag about that, but it's usually an icebreaker when I'm talking to somebody. I go, wow, I didn't even think about that. And then it gets to, I didn't know you played baseball. I didn't know you played football. And then we talk about UCF. So that's ultimately where it goes back to the love for UCF like you guys have. But for your question of baseball and football, they're totally different. I mean, I love both of them. Hitting a home run is more of an individual accomplishment, where a touchdown, you get to enjoy it for about 2 seconds, and then it's team for the rest of it. And I love both of them separately.
You enjoyed those slow trots around the bases, though, right? I think it's a little sweeter.
I truly, especially my last year when I finally figured out my power swing again, I truly love to trot around the bases.
All right, so what was like a typical off season? Weight training and all that training for football has got to be completely different than training for baseball, I would think. So how is that like in the off season going into both sports?
I would never tell my players this, but I didn't lift weights. And this is a true story. I didn't lift weights in college until my last year when I decided to play baseball only. And the reason why is because I was so tired after both sports. Going into the summer, they would shut me down. So I didn't lift weights until August each year, until my last year where I lifted the entire year. So
go ahead.
So they literally said, shut down, go back home, don't do anything, finish summer school.
Well, I'm surprised, because I forget who it was. I think it was Vic Penn, or it might have been Schneider. One of these guys said you were the strongest guy that they remember having on the team with them.
I'm not saying I was weak. I'm just saying that's what it looked like, because I literally would have to shut down. And that's why my power numbers, if you notice my last year in college, it went from 7 home runs to like 19, 18, 19 or something like that. It's because I actually got a full year of working out for the first time in 4 years. Not because something I wanted to do, just my body just literally said, stop. Just you need a break.
So your sophomore year, you're back on the football field, and you saw a bit of an increase in your workload in your sophomore year. I think you're pretty much the primary number 2 back behind Alex Haynes. But you had a stretch in the middle of the season. It looks like Haynes was out for a couple of games. You saw a lot of touches. You actually had a 2-touchdown game against Liberty. You mentioned kind of your adjustment earlier. Going into your sophomore year, how much more comfortable were you feeling in the Kruzek offense, and how comfortable were you with your role in the offense at that point?
Just enjoying football, being on the field, obviously my goal and being excited about it. But understanding that Bible of the playbook and knowing what your quarterback is looking at, it makes the game slow down. And when you hear people say, oh, it slowed down for me in the second year, that's exactly what they're talking about. You understand the game more, still the same speed, but you understand it more, so it's slowing down that you know, okay, that's what he means when he says Mike right there. But first, I had no idea what a mic was. Like, oh, Mike's right there. Okay, yeah, I got you, bud. I'm going to hit the first guy that comes to me. But the second year, I understood, okay, I got 54. And that helped me at every position that he had us play that year. Also, I think even that year I played a little bit of linebacker. So even understanding from an offensive perspective, I knew exactly what they were talking about,
So we were at school the same time you were playing. So one of the guys, always one of my favorite players of all time, is Alex Haynes. And I think he gets lost, obviously, in some of the success UCF has had of late. Can you describe how good Alex Haynes was back then for maybe people who didn't see him or haven't seen the YouTube clips?
Alex got caught. Alex got caught the same time I did. We're 5 wide schools when we got here. But Alex is probably the biggest running back and fastest combination that I've seen in any football. You know what I mean? He got caught in the wrong era of UCF. But when you're talking about a guy that's probably – Alex would play at about 235, 240. You know what I mean? But still could probably run a 4.4, 4.5 at that speed. That's unheard of when you're talking about a guy ripped like he was, as big as he was, and still can run that fast. You know what I mean? The athletic ability of that guy was amazing.
Well, that entire 02 team was actually really fun. A lot of young talent. So just for folks who were listening, here's some of the names that were on that team with you that year. Asante Samuel and Atari Bigby on defense. Mike mentioned Ryan Schneider. He threw for a bunch of yards. Haynes ran for 1,000 yards that year. Doug Gabriel and Jimmy Frizzell each had over 1,000 yards receiving. I know that team started 0-3 and ended up winning 7 of the last 9, but that's always been in my mind, a really fun team. How much fun was it to be on that team with all that young, exciting talent that you guys had around there?
That team was amazing, not only because there's a good group of guys, but just knowing that any day we can line up and beat whoever it was. And I would say not for 4 quarters, but for 3, because the 4th quarter we would always tire out, and then eventually we would lose the game. And not until probably recently I understood what Coach Cruz was saying. He would always say, "You think that team is better than us?" And at the time, I'm like, "Coach, they just beat us by 3 touchdowns." But now that I understand what he's saying, it's like, honestly, they weren't. They just had more guys than us. You know what I mean? When you look at when I look at film, you're like, wow, we beat this team down for 3 quarters and literally gave out. I just ran out of gas. So just looking back at that team, that 2002 team is probably the best team that I played with, for sure.
All right, getting back to baseball for a second. The next season wasn't as great. You guys went 31-25. You had a losing record in conference. And your season yourself kind of was a little step back from your freshman year. What do you think caused the results of that 2003 season? Anything different about the team that year?
My workload in football. Like being truthful, my workload. I started off pretty good that year, as in hitting the ball. But as I started getting hits, obviously we know the difference between hitting well and getting hits. When I started getting hits, my body started literally falling apart. And only Coach Bergman knows that. But he was like, "Do you want a day off?" I'm like, "No, I gotta fight through it. We're struggling as a team." But literally, my body was a nightmare. I was overweight, just because I was playing more linebacker that year, so I gained some more weight. I was overweight for the baseball field, and the body just continued to fall apart towards the end of the season. Got back down to weight for the following year, and obviously saw the difference in number. I was able to carry a little bit more time and not be hurt as much.
So was there any thought, you still came back for another year of football, but was there thought of giving up football then, that year before?
I did. I did. every year I evaluated it, but that one was the biggest one that I literally evaluated, because I'm like, okay, I always know that baseball is my go-to. Football is fun. Do I have another year? And at the time, I saw the 2002 team, and I'm like, we got a lot of these guys coming back. Let's do it. You know what I mean? So that was the motivating factor of coming back that year.
Well, you did go back, but unfortunately that 03 football group had a tough year. So 3-9 overall. Bunch of guys get suspended. Coach Cruz gets fired before the season ends. How tough was that year for you? Just, to your point, you came back, you were trying to win with those guys, and it kind of got off the rails in a hurry. How frustrating was that for you?
It was tough. I mean, losing's always tough, but when you see guys get suspended, when you look at a more personal level, when you see your boys and your friends get suspended, it takes a toll on the team. Not to say that we couldn't continue to play hard, but if you were inside the locker room, a lot of the guys, I don't want to say quit, but a lot of the guys was like, who's next? Who's getting suspended next? So instead of focusing on the next team that we're playing, it's more about, did I do something wrong? Or, did I miss a class that they're about to kick me out of? Like, it was more second guessing yourself about making sure you're doing the right thing than actually focusing on football. So, I mean, it was tough, definitely, to see Cruz go, because a lot of people don't like Cruz just because the personality he is, but I loved him. I loved him from the first day on campus. I can take criticism like with the best of them, the way he gives it, because I know he's saying it out of love. So when he got fired, I understand it's a business, but with the guy that brought you on campus, it still sucks.
Well, you were an upperclassman in that team. Obviously, you were at that point a leader in the group. I'm always fascinated by these kind of things from a peer leadership standpoint. What were you or some of the other upperclassmen trying to do to hold the team together, right? Obviously, you saw kind of the fractures coming. Was there anything you guys tried to do to kind of hold the young guys together and sort of take them under your wing, even though, some things were crumbling down around you guys?
Just try to play harder. I mean, unfortunately, I was upperclassman, but we had a lot of young guys. So when you got a lot of distractions outside of, the everyday of football, it's kind of hard to get young guys to focus when they're looking at what's going on. You know what I mean? Even when it's not a lot going on, it's still hard to get, like, myself as an 18-year-old to focus. Like, bro, I got this going on, I got these girls, I got the game, I got my parents. And now you're talking about your coaches getting fired, your starting quarterback is off the team, your entire line is gone. That's hard to recover, and it's hard to kind of get people to focus, and eventually snowball effect,
All right, getting back to baseball again, the 2004 season, you got a lot better, and the team got a lot better. They won 47 games. You led the team in hits and RBIs. What clicked for you that year? Was this kind of getting away from football and just focusing now on baseball?
No, I was in better shape. That's a start. But that year, I don't know if go back to 2002 season, we had a ton of seniors on that team, and only a handful of freshmen. The 2003 season, we had a ton of sophomore juniors. You know what I mean? That we were able to get more freshmen to train them up. Unfortunately, we lost. But then when I got to my junior year, those freshmen or sophomores, we got some junior college guys. So it was a better team around me. I saw better pitches. My best friend, Clay Timpner, saw better pitches because they had to pitch to him, which kind of he was a fire starter for everybody. Once he got on, it was easy for everybody to start clicking, you know what I mean? So we saw better pitches. We had better pitchers that year. We just had more depth. So we're a better all-around team.
Yeah, it was an exciting year. We go to the regionals. We beat Oklahoma State first round. We lose to FSU, but then we beat Oklahoma State again. You know where it's coming. We beat FSU 7-5. We forced an elimination game. And then we got destroyed 19-3. We just run out of pitching?
Do you want the truth?
Yeah. Yes, I want. Can I handle
Do
the
you
truth?
want the uncut UCF truth, right? So we were the best team in the country that year. We had two of the better pitchers in by far the country. One went first round, other one went seventh round. Probably would have been a first round if the contract demands wouldn't have been that much, right? Our first night when we beat Oklahoma State, they pushed our game until like 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if a lot of people know that other regionals pushed their game back another day for the next day. So it allowed our other pitchers that pitched the first day to come back. FSU knew that. So when we got to that last game, we literally were pitching with 18-year-old kids that had never pitched all season. And that's how you get a score of 19. Literally, we had position players pitching that game, if I'm not mistaken. Because Coach refused, and I respect Coach Bergman to this day for this. Our top pitchers went to him and said, "Coach, I can pitch." And he said, "No, I won't risk your future." But if it would have been the next day, which the other regionals finished the following day, they would have been able to pitch.
Yeah, and there was an extra inning game in there too, one of the games, right?
Yeah, that's my truth, and I'm going to stick to it because I know that they screw us every time you go to FSU. That's just how it goes.
So refresh my memory on that game. Was it close and then they just blew it up in late, or was they just pounding on us on the whole game?
The second time we played FSU, the second time we played it, the second time we played FSU, it was close, and then literally I want to say our closer was who was pitching to start the game. He reached his limit. Coach took him out and had to put the other guys in. And not to blame the other guys, they're literally 18 pitching in a game that can send your team to a super regionals. I can only imagine what I would have did at 18. You know what I mean? Being on the mound. So nothing against those guys. It just so happened that was the time for them to come in, and it's a tough situation for 18-year-old.
Well, going into the next year, so we mentioned Coach Kruzak had been let go, and Coach O'Leary was announced as a new football coach. You ultimately decided not to play football for your senior year. What went into that decision, and how tough was it for you to walk away from the football field?
Honestly, I've always was open with myself and evaluated at every summer. I always evaluate. I took that time that they told us to leave and evaluate it. When I didn't get drafted in baseball, that ultimately was the deciding factor. It had nothing to do. If Cruz would have been there, we'd have won the national championship the year before. Would have made it a little bit harder, but to totally give you the honest answer, when I didn't get drafted back in 378, leading in the top 10 in the country, RBIs and all that, and the only excuse I got is that I didn't hit home runs, even though we didn't have a home run park. I decided I need to get bigger, faster, stronger. You know what I mean? So that's ultimately what I did the next off season. How
tough was it to watch that 04 football team and going winless, didn't win a game that season?
I did.
You didn't watch it at all?
I didn't watch one game.
Wow.
To be flat, I mean, one is obviously we weren't on TV as much back then. Two, we played at the Citrus Bowl, and honestly, I couldn't go and watch, even though I was still roommates with all my guys. I wouldn't go. You know, part of me felt like I let some of them down, and then the other half, I just trained. I literally trained nonstop for that following year.
Well, that seemed to work out well for you. So that final season at UCF baseball, you hit 312. Like you mentioned, a career high, a team high 18 home runs that year, 71 RBIs. You're actually still the UCF record holder for RBIs in a career. What did you do differently that offseason when you knew you were going to be only focused on baseball? You mentioned training all the time. What were you doing differently? How were you training differently that offseason going into your last baseball campaign?
It was the first year in my entire life that I had one sport, and I actually had an off season to train. So it was kind of exciting time for me because it was a step that I've never thought about. It's like do something in the off season besides play football. So just kind of give you an idea, I was about 240. I think I got down to about 225 and probably the best shape I've ever been in my life. Running wise, I think I was probably a 6'9" starting that off season and got it all the way down to 6'5" at 230, 225, 230. You know what I mean? So I was flying for that size of a man. But just getting stronger, squatting, lifting, all that stuff, and following the weight program, and then seeing that stuff play out on the field. It was pretty exciting for me.
Do you wish you had done some of that regimen sooner, or do you think that was just the right time for you?
No, it was all. I'm all about, in due time. You know what I mean? And that's what that was the plan, was to go in with the plan. I'm gonna play the same. I'm gonna play two sports until my body tells me no. My body told me no, and that's when I decided to do it. It was a great experience for me. Not too many people can say they played both sports in college at a D1 level.
That 2005 team was pretty good. We went 42-18, but we didn't make the playoffs. Refresh my memory on that season. What happened there?
We started off hot. I don't know if you remember UCF about 3 years ago when they started off the best one of the best seasons ever, and all of a sudden we just the tires fell off. That's what happened to us. We started off as hot as can be, ranked in the top 15 or so, and literally the tires just started falling off. And I can't point to one thing or another because we kept hitting. We kept pitching well. It just didn't add up to wins. When you look at stats that year, pitching stats were great, hitting stats were great, but we sucked on the win total. That's the only thing I can say. We sucked.
We had just moved into Conference USA. You think that was a difference? Because we were in Atlantic Sun the first couple of years you were there, right?
No, we were still. I believe that was our last. I think that was our last year in the Atlantic Sun.
Oh, okay.
And just to be totally honest, just to make sure, the Atlantic Sun was ranked ahead of Conference USA before then. The Atlantic Sun, when numbers wise, we were always ranked ahead of Conference USA. So that's what the thing with USF was like. Oh, we're better than you. Like, not really. Look at the numbers. We had probably 5 or 6 teams in the top 25 every year.
Well, after that, your career is over, but you get drafted by the Washington Nationals in the 10th round. You spent 4 years with the organization. Tell us a little bit what life was like in the minor leagues there for traveling.
Minor leagues suck. Let's just be honest. There's no fame and glory behind the minor leagues. Obviously, for guys with a goal, my goal was if I didn't make it in 4 years, I was giving it up because I saw what the minor leagues did. But, just to be on the positive side, I enjoyed my time there when it came to a baseball standpoint. But everything outside of baseball was a nightmare. It wasn't for me. I'll just be honest. It just wasn't. And I respect those guys that do it for 10, 15 years. I couldn't. I love baseball, but I didn't like it like that.
How high up did you get? Get AA, AAA?
I got to AA, and then things started changing in our organization. And I'm a business guy. I'm a sales by trade, so I understand you're going to protect your investment. And when those numbers didn't start adding up to moving up, that's when I knew, okay, my 4-year goal is correct. I'm spot on. If I don't make it to the big leagues in 4 years, then I need to get out. I'm still young enough to build up my 401k and start moving towards retirement.
Well, last week, Justin Pope told us minors weren't that bad. He said the food was all right and travel wasn't bad. So you had a different opinion, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. For those guys that love it, like I said, I love baseball, but I didn't like it like that. It's a difference. I have guys that are still playing right now that I got drafted with. You know what I mean? So for the guys that love it and you get to the right situation, it works out great. For me, when I got my first paycheck, I was a little sheltered. My dad played in the NFL, so I was used to certain things in life. You know what I mean? Not to sound bougie or anything. I'm a hard worker, but I was used to certain things. When I got my first paycheck, it was about $700. That was after working for a full month, and I'm like, $700? I almost went home right then. Like, I'm looking at, I don't know if me and John Michael, my UCF roommate, actually got drafted both rounds behind. And literally, we're looking at each other. And John Michael does pretty well for himself. So me and him are looking at each other like, dude, are you ready to go? I'm like, man, this might be it. $700? So we had to call our agent like, hey, man, what's going on with the $700? Like, I thought we signed for this. Like, no, that's it. That's your monthly due. So yeah, I guess it depends on how you look at it. But from my experience, had a great time playing baseball, but everything else was it's not built up for what I thought it was.
Well, speaking of phone calls, so you got a call sometime in 2015, and somebody on the other end of that call had informed you that you were going to go into the UCF Sports Hall of Fame. Who made that call for you, and what were your emotions when the phone rang and you learned you were going to be a Hall of Famer at UCF?
I had a lot of emotions. I just thinking about everything that went into it. I got the call that day from the AD at the time. Is it Stansberry?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want to say his name wrong. It's been replaced with Danny White, best AD in the world. But I got a call from a nice gentleman. Told me that I got in. Honestly, it was I don't cry much, but I didn't cry. Just thinking about everything that went into it, all the coaches, all the trips my mom did, my stepdad, all the work the coaches did for free. When you think about high school coaches, I had two of the best high school coaches that worked with me nonstop, no matter what time of the day. To think about all the football coaches that did the work, that was what I reflected on for about an hour. And before I even told my wife, I just sat there and reflected on that. And that was more of the emotion that I had. You know, obviously looking at the respect aspect of it, but from a coach at the time when they called me, I'm thinking about all the coaches that poured into me, you know.
Well, you mentioned you spent some time coaching high school ball for a while, and
never again.
You mentioned you were well. All right, well I'll go there. What was that experience like? What? Obviously sometimes people say it's harder to teach someone something that's natural to you. How did you take to being a coach?
I love being a coach. I love being a coach, but I'm gonna keep it PG. I love being a coach and my time with the kids. As a society, we are sheltering our kids, and that's the struggling part of coaching these days.
It's the parents.
It's the parents, which leads to administration because they are parents as well. And that doesn't make you bad people. It's just taken away from the experience of allowing a coach to pour into you. Like I said about my coaches when I got that call, you know what I mean? It didn't go well. I appreciate my mom for letting them pour into me. She had no say-so. She was like, handoff, here you go. He's yours for the next 4 hours. Have fun. You know what I mean? So they don't allow that anymore. It's more they want hands-on. And it takes away from the experience that I was trying to give. You know what I mean? Still had great success, got kids to college, but do I feel like I had the great opportunity to build into them or pour into them like I was? No. And that's why I had to step away for sure.
All right, so what are you up to these days professionally? What are you working on?
I'm still I was volunteering my time with them, but I'm still working in sales. I work for a manufacturer company here, and just having a good time. Traveling now. I'm traveling with my son, who's a up and coming soccer player, and see where it takes him.
What's more rewarding? You getting a chance to play or watching your kids play?
I love watching my kids do anything. I mean, people laugh, but I try not to miss anything. Not for the whole, how some people kind of hoard their kids. I just love watching him put work in, and then it comes out on Saturday or whatever day they're playing, and him perfect whatever he's been working on. That's the enjoyment. I could care less if they win or lose. I don't know anything about soccer. I don't want to learn anything about soccer because I can be a true parent. I drop him off, let coach do what he needs to do, pick him up, take him where he's going. But when I see him work on something and it comes out, that's amazing. My youngest son, probably never going to play any sport in the history of the world, but he loves music. And I love watching him do music. You know what I mean? He makes his own beats. He's only 4, but he's on his tablet making beats, doing his thing. And if that's what he loves, hey, I'm going to be there for it,
Well, that's awesome, man. We appreciate you sharing that story. We appreciate you spending a lot of time with us too. So we'll get you out of here on this. We end every interview. We ask like 10 random questions about movies, music, sports. You never know what you're going to get. So you ready to face just 10 random sort of rapid fire questions?
Good luck with this one.
I think I have faith in you. You've done a nice job so far. I have faith in you. These are going to be easy too. Here's an easy one for you. You ready? Who's the funniest teammate you were ever around? Which teammate made you laugh the most?
I have to say Marshall Bernhardt, baseball. I played with him 2003, 5, and 2005, I'm pretty sure.
What did he do to make you laugh so much?
He's nonstop. It doesn't matter if we're down 0 to 10 or we're up 0 or 10 to nothing. He's nonstop. He's unpredictable. He doesn't care what coach is saying. He's still going to get his point across there. He's going to be funny. They could be bases loaded, him walking up. If he promises you he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And that's why, to this day, literally, he texts us, you never know what's going to come across that text. You can't open it up in front of anybody. It could be anything. He's just that guy, and I love him to death. That's probably the funniest team I have, for sure.
All right, we're all quarantined right now. You can only pick one. Which coach would you rather be quarantined with, Kruzek or Bergman?
Ooh.
Wow. Coming out hot, Mike.
I'm gonna go with the wild card. I would say Mike Kruzek. Because if it comes down to snacking, he's not going to eat all the snacks. Kruzak was all about body image, and I'm all about eating. So I know I can win that one.
He's going to be making you work out like 10 times a day.
Oh, no. Kruzak's a solo workout. He doesn't bring anybody to work out. He loves working out and looking at himself in the mirror. I love him to death. Coach would be spot on with everything.
Well, you used to work out obviously a ton back in your playing days. You were a big boy, like you mentioned, so kind of a two-parter. Did anyone ever dare throw at you? And if so, did you ever charge the mound?
I have charged the mound. No, I never charged. I've charged the catcher. I'm smart about it. I've never charged the mound. I went backwards.
Okay.
Never got in a fight on that standpoint, but I have been in brawls when it comes to baseball. I go backwards, not forward, because you're always going to get tripped up.
So you did charge a catcher one time?
I have charged a catcher. We got broken up.
You're going to have to tell, what did he say something? Was you didn't like the pitch? What led to the charge?
No, I knew it was just a situation in the game, and I'm like, buddy, don't hit me because you're going to pay for it. So I ended up getting kicked out, ended up jacking him up. I was in my last year playing an independent ball. I call it my fun summers because that's what I did. I went and teamed up with two of my guys that I've always wanted to play with, and we ended up playing in independent ball for 2 years and just having a good time in summer. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. It was just I knew the situation. The guy hit a bomb. I come back up. I hit a bomb the first time. The next guy hits a bomb, and then as I came back up, the guy before me hit a bomb, and I just knew it. Like, buddy, this is not the good situation to hit me, dude. It's just not.
What did the guy? Did he hit you? Did he throw at you?
Oh, he threw at me. I don't think he hit me. I moved. I'm not just gonna take it.
All right, I already talked about the best feeling, hitting a home run or scoring a touchdown. What's the worst feeling? Striking out with the bases loaded or fumbling?
The worst feeling, honestly, for me, is fumbling. It's like it's because you let your whole team down. Like let's be honest, you're expected to lose in baseball, but you're never expected to fumble in football. When I say lose in baseball, you're still losing even if you're winning at 3 out of 10 times. So you're still expected to lose no matter if you're great or not. You know what I mean? So losing a fumble is especially losing a fumble while you're being tackled, because your mind is trying to get the football, but the rest of the team is laying on it. And it's like, that sucks.
All right, like Mike mentioned, we're all doing our part. We're all quarantined and staying safe right now. But D, I'm bored. I need something to watch. Give me something I can binge watch. Give me a TV show, a movie. Give me a Dee Brown recommendation and something I can binge watch.
I'm boring when it comes to watching stuff. I watch a lot of cop shows. A lot of just nonsense cop shows, Live PD, nonstop, all day. Oh,
dude, I love Live PD. That's a great show.
I started watching the Tiger Dude.
Okay,
night.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you too. I'm with you.
I'm at the spot that I'm invested too much time. Like, I could care less to watch him, but I've invested so much time that I got to continue to watch it to see the end of it.
It's like the best, worst show I've ever seen in my life.
People like, and I don't mean this by any means of stretching, man. I'm from Brooksville, so I've seen a lot of different people. Do people like this really exist? And for a guy from Brooksville, if I ask that, it's like, does this even exist? That has to be very strange. I'm just saying. I'm throwing that out there.
There's definitely some characters on that show. That is for sure. All right. We talked a little bit before we started recording. You're married with 2 kids. I'm married with 2 kids. Adam's married with 2 kids. We're all stuck in the house with your families now. We love them. We love our wives and kids. Are you more likely to get pregnant during this quarantine or divorced?
I'm more likely. Well, I'm never going to get divorced. I love my wife, but we're not having any more kids. With the close quarters that we have right now, I would have to pick. We're more likely to get divorced. I threw the disclaimer out there that I'm never. But yeah, these kids, they get to fighting, and you know how that is. I won't say anything bad about my wife. I love her.
All right, we've asked this question to a bunch of different guests, so we try to get to the bottom, the real answer here. Okay, which sauce goes on chicken wings? Blue cheese or ranch? You order chicken wings, you getting blue cheese with it, or you getting ranch with it?
Ranch.
Okay.
I'm not sure who picked blue cheese, but what is blue cheese?
Disgusting, I think.
What?
I'm just saying, what is it?
Cheese. It's delicious. You never tried it with the chicken wing?
Why?
Yeah. See,
when you have something that's perfected, why would you go and say, "Oh, let me throw a curveball"? I hit the fastball.
Hit the fastball, Mike.
That's what you hit. The ranch and chicken wing was meant to go together. That's it.
I strongly disagree. Get yourself some blue cheese. Instacart some blue cheese in the next couple of days, and try some chicken wings with blue cheese. You haven't tried it, right?
But why?
Hit the fastball, D. Don't worry about it. Hit the fastball.
If a guy starts you an 0-0 count with a fastball, why wait 2 seconds? I'm hitting it. I'm eating the chicken wing with the ranch.
Every once in a while, you gotta hit a curveball.
Yeah,
right.
That's when you're forced.
All right, I got a bunch of quarantine questions, apparently. So we're stuck at home. Would you rather be without internet or air conditioning?
Who internet?
Yeah, I think that's
it was like 93 today. That's not even. I can do a lot of things without the internet. I can't do anything without AC.
Yeah, you still down here in Florida?
Yeah, I'm in Orlando. I'm not too far. I'm never leaving Orlando. I love UCF, and I love going to every event that I can possibly get to. And that's part of the driving force of why I can stay here. My wife is allowing me to stay here because we do a lot with UCF and go there and take the kids and, get to enjoy that.
All right, this sets me up for my last question perfectly then, D. So I say the hardest for last. I want you to rank these 4 schools in order of their football programs right now. So from best to worst, right? These 4 schools. Ready? Florida State, Florida, Miami, and UCF. Who? Give me your 1, 2, 3, and 4 schools in terms of football out of those 4.
UCF is one.
That's it. Correct answer.
That's a no-brainer, and debate me, and I'll hang up on you about that anyways. Florida's 2, and it pains me to say this. Florida State is before Miami.
Ooh. Okay.
I don't think Miami will ever be good until they understand that they need to rebuild. I love Miami. They're my second team, but I feel like they always want to say we're back instead of going to the ground up and building the foundation. They're nonstop trying to grab onto somebody from back in the days where they would have 35 5-stars, and that just doesn't happen anymore.
All right, last question for me. What's the first place you're going to go? What are you going to do when this whole quarantine, this whole coronavirus thing is done and we can leave our houses again? Is there a vacation place you got in mind, something you want to go, or just a place you want to go back to?
We didn't book our summer vacation this year, but I'm very simple. I'm a country guy. So the first thing I'm going to do is go fishing. That's already planned. I don't know when, but when we're open up, we're going fishing. That'll be on the west coast of Florida.
Can't beat that. Can't beat that. D, look, man, we appreciate you for taking some time with us tonight, man, and being so gracious with your time and walking us through your career. Like I said, if for you young kids out there listening, you don't know Dee Brown, do some Googling. There's a lot of different Dee Browns out there, by the way. Do people confuse you all the time with the slam dunk champion at all?
I have dunked once in my life, but I am not the slam dunk champion.
Okay. All right. So search Dee Brown UCF. There's a lot of Dee Browns out there, but probably the best one and the best athlete is the guy who went to UCF, man. And we appreciate you for coming on. Thanks for all you've done for UCF and being a Hall of Famer, both on and off the field, D. And we hopefully we'll get a chance to catch up with you soon, okay?
Thank you. You guys keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate any UCF's talk radio. And thanks for having me on, and go Knights.
Okay, sons of UCF, both of you, you are the father.
All right, Mike, Cow of the Week time. Again, I hope you enjoyed listening to the Dee Brown conversation, Mike. Again, we have so many of these in the archives, and every time you and I keep thinking, how do we make sure these get back out to people? And this one in particular, because it's a history lesson. He's somebody who was a really unique career at UCF, and we're glad we could reintroduce that to you. If you haven't heard it before, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did hear it before, hopefully you enjoyed it a second time. But Dee Brown was a really good interview, and really good to catch up with him. He was a legend. He's a pioneer at UCF, and we always enjoy talking to those kind of guys.
Dee Brown, fantastic athlete. He used to drop bombs in baseball. And we've talked to a few guys that were on the football team with him, saying he was the strongest guy on the team.
Yeah.
He would go in as a fullback and just open up holes all over the place. Very good football player too. So I really enjoyed that interview we did with him. It's been a long time, and I'm glad we're able to bring these interviews back because, we've gotten to speak to a lot of guys, and half of them are off the internet now, and we're bringing them back to you guys. And we've had a lot of new listeners here in the last year or so that have never heard that interview before. So good to have him back.
All right, good to have Cow of the Week back, as always. It ends every show, Mike, and you always lead off with something that made you just laugh or shake your head or that you thought was idiotic. So what caught your eye this week, my friend?
Right, we mentioned retiring and then coming out of retirement only a couple of weeks later. Obviously, you know exactly who I'm talking about, Mr. Austin Camden.
Yeah.
What are you doing, my friend? I mean, you retired or you're not retired? Come on. I'm glad to have you back, but this guy's just seeking attention, and obviously somebody else did the same thing. It's Mr. Tom Brady. Tom Brady was home for a month and a half and decided he's got unfinished business, as he puts it. The guy's won 7 freaking Super Bowls. He's got unfinished business coming back. I don't know. He's already had like 3 Hall of Fame careers. If you divide his whole career up, he's coming back. He's never going to stop playing, this guy. He must have what did he get in a fight with Giselle or something? And he said, all right, you know what? I'm going to go back and play football. Screw this. I'm not sitting home for another day. I don't get it. But the guy that really turned out to be the cow was this guy that bought his last touchdown pass in an auction the day before he came back. The guy paid $518,000 for a football that is now worthless. As soon as he comes back and throws another touchdown, that ball means nothing. How much? Imagine spending that much money on something and having the value drop that quickly. I can't imagine. I mean, obviously, if you have $518,000 to spend on a football, you probably have millions of dollars, and that's probably nothing to you. That's a drop in the bucket. And I'm sure you can rationalize and say, hey, I went to a good charity and this and that. But my goodness, $500,000 for a football what are you going to do with it now? You can't even tell anybody just the last touchdown pass. So, who's the cow here? Tom Brady's a cow. Austin Camden's a cow. This guy that bought the football is a cow. We got a few cows there.
Yeah, I don't think it's Austin Camden. I feel like he's a friend of the program, hopefully. So I think he's not cow. Tom Brady, you're hearing all the jokes about like he's been home for 6 weeks and had to sit in the carpool line and was like, I'm done with this. And he realized he's got to do all these other house chores and say, hey, I'm going back to football. I guess you can make that joke. I think it's the guy who paid $518,000 because even if Brady stayed retired, I mean, were you going to flip that ball? Are you just that much of a Tom Brady fan? Do you have a large memorabilia collection? I feel like those things never really appreciate in value, do they? Like, I feel like as time goes on, more guys get closer to records and yada yada yada. I guess around Hall of Fame time, that ball will probably be worth something. But is that really an investment? Is he going to like flip that thing for double at some point? I don't know how that works.
That's only if Tom Brady dies. When Tom Brady dies, then that thing shoots up in value, right?
Wow. Okay. Rest in peace.
That's sad to say. But, the way Tom Brady takes care of himself, he's outliving all of us. That guy's going to live probably 150 years old.
Yeah.
And, he's got to have the science behind it. I'm sure he's going to have all kinds of, he's probably got medicine. But he's probably never going to age, this guy. He's probably already discovered anti-aging, which explains a lot in the way he plays football. So, that guy is a sucker. And he's almost as dumb as the guy that gave back the record setting touchdown. Remember that idiot?
Yeah.
yeah. Give me a couple signed jerseys. Yeah. That guy could have made $518,000 off the ball. A bunch of morons around here, and cows, as we call them, I guess.
I think we're bearing the lead here, though. Was the football inflated? I think we got to get a PSI reading on that football and see where we're at. And then, secondly, does Brady have to make this right? Does Brady have to call this guy and be like, bro, my bad. Let me go halfsies with you. You'll get my first time. Like, does Brady owe this guy anything?
No.
Nothing.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Tom didn't tell him to spend that much money on it.
Fair.
This guy owes his wife, if he has one, an apology, I guess. Or what is he? How do you explain that to your wife? I just spent $500,000. For what? For a football. Oh, yeah. And now it's worth nothing the next day. The very next day. It's not like he even had it for a couple months.
It's like 12 hours later, yeah.
To show off to his friends.
Yeah.
Nothing. He had nothing. Unless Brady has a devastating injury in the preseason and never plays again, then that ball's worthless.
So Brady has no obligation to go to the auctioneer people and go, hey, you know what? You might not want to do that because I'm still not thinking, I mean, I'm going to assume he has a disposable income stream that allows $518,000 to not feel as heavy as it would to you and I, but it's still that's still a pretty dumb move, and that's why sports memorabilia can be for suckers, and unfortunately, this guy is one of them. Mike, speaking of suckers, cow of the week, but more of a personal cow of the week this week is yours truly. I am the absolute cow of the week, Mike, and maybe it's not really my fault, but I definitely contributed to this. For those who don't know, I live up in Ponte Vedra, which is the home of the Players Golf Tournament, which was played this weekend here in our fair city. I'm literally 10 minutes from there. The rain threw a monkey wrench in a lot, Mike, but I had grounds passes for a couple days. And so I went out and I checked out the Players Tournament, Mike. And would you believe that your boy, every time I had to go to the goddamn concession stand, I was dropping $10 for a Michelob Ultra. That was the cheapest beer option yet. $10 for a 16-ounce Michelob Ultra. That's the going rate these days. And my dumb ass paid it like I don't even know how many times over the week. And I had my daughter with me for one day, and if I was going there, she'd like, let me get a bottle of water. I didn't get out of the concession stand for anything less than like $15 a pop every single solitary time, Mike. I don't know if that makes me the cow of the week. Does that make the PGA Tour the cow of the week? I don't know who's the cow here. All I know is I forked over a lot of money to buy Michelob Ultras, and it was not something I wanted to do, but I had no choice.
How much does a 12-pack cost at Publix?
A Michelob Ultra, I actually saw this the other day. It was like $16.99, I think. $17.
You paid that price for two.
$10 a pop.
Even.
Yeah.
One and a half.
$10 a pop, yeah.
Yeah, that's how they make their money. And you're not the only one that's doing it.
I was not the only one that did that, actually, because the lines were out. And that was the cheapest one. They had like an IPA that was like $13. They had some other more fancy beer that was like $15, and then they had mimosas and mixed drinks. All that stuff was going for like $12, $13, $15. So I had the literal cheapest alcoholic option available to me was the $10 Michelob Ultra.
Are they like a jumbo size?
16 ounce,
regular 12 ounce.
16 ounce in the aluminum bottle.
I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Every time I've gone to football games, hockey games, baseball games, whatever it is, I'm paying stadium prices.
Yeah.
I've paid $15 for a Heineken at a hockey game plenty of times.
Yeah.
So where you are not alone. At least you had free passes to this thing, right? So you kind of made you kind of broke even.
I did, yeah. So to be fair, I did get free grounds passes. My buddy works at the PGA Tour, so I got some free passes, which is fantastic. Actually had a really good time. Golf's a fun event. You walk a lot, but after a while, you don't even really. It's so funny. Like you become desensitized to how much you're paying for a beer, right? So I was there Thursday pretty much all day, and came back on Sunday, which was really the round 2 and round 3 based on the rain. And a buddy of mine was not there on Thursday, came with us on Sunday, and we go to the window, and it's like 8 a.m., right? We're like, let's get some beers. We go to the window, and, I'm like, yeah, Mick Ultra. And this guy's like, how much is it? And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I was by day 2, I was like desensitized to it. I didn't even care anymore what the price was. I was just accepting of it and moving on. And that just shows you what they've conditioned us to do, which is spend a boatload of money on Michelob Ultra.
That's right. And golf is a rich man's sport. I mean, you know everybody that's at that event has some money.
Don't get me started on the merchandise tent. Holy crap. Good Lord. Has anybody seen the price of a polo shirt these days? Apparently it's like $85 and higher.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I took my wife and girls to a hockey game about 2 weeks ago. Man, it's not cheap either. I bought some tickets on StubHub. I thought I was getting a pretty good deal, but then once you get in there, man, the prices of the drinks and the food, and then I bought a hat and I bought a hoodie. Man, I spent a lot of money that night too. And parking was $35. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I lucked out on parking.
Right next to the arena. Yeah. I used to be able to walk there, and I was like, parking. If you get there early enough, you could just park at the mall across the street. But we were running a little late, and I got suckered in $35 to park. Oh man.
Yeah, to be fair, I also got free parking because my buddy drove us and he has employee parking. So I got free parking, I got free tickets. So in theory, I didn't have the full exposure from a law standpoint that I may have normally had had I gone to that event. But $10 for Michelob Ultra, there's got to be better ways. I mean, if you want to charge like that much for the beer, but give you like a cheap option. Give me like a $5 like Pabst, right? And like let me just figure it out in the moment if what I'm willing to do here, right? Give me that option. And let me make my bad choices on my own. But give me an out if I need one, And that's just not an option. Or here's the other thing: you can usually. We were talking the lady and the gentleman into letting us get like 2 or 3 at a time, because the concession stand is nowhere near where you want to be watching the action, right? This isn't like a football game where they're walking down the aisles, right? You can't have the beer guy walking down the 18th green while some guy's trying to like tee off. So you had to basically buy in mass because you got back to your spot and you were stuck there for a while. So they got to figure that out too, by the way. But let me have my options. Let me make some bad choices on my own. If I'm going to go $5, PBR, let me make that option. You know what I mean? Like there should be an out. Give me an out. That's all I want. Give me a small out.
You know what you needed was the beer belly or the wine rack. Remember? Yeah. Exactly what I used during the BYU game when I was drinking out of my buddy's shirt.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yeah, that's an option. There had to be a way to sneak some in. I'm sure you could have snuck in a couple mini bottles of Jack Daniels or something in your pocket and just bought a couple. Even though the Cokes probably would have been $12 to mix them with. But
look, you learn, man. I'm not trying to put the PGA Tour on blast because it was a fantastic event and I had a good time. But on Thursday it rained in the afternoon, so they basically kick you off the course while it's raining. So we see the morning action. They kick us off for a while, and we're like, hey, we can come back, right? And they're like, yeah. Well, how do we get back in? Dude literally just drew a smiley face on the inside of my hand. It was like, just show them that when you come back in. So, I mean, there are a lot of people, a lot of loose action at the security section that maybe we could have scammed our way through there. But either way.
That's what it was like at BYU.
Yeah,
we left to go at halftime to go out to the parking lot to drink, and it was honor system. Because that's just the way the Mormons roll out there. You got to come back. I had extra tickets that I couldn't sell. So I was going to use those to come back in. I didn't need them. Yeah, come back in. Go ahead. No problem. We're the only ones in the parking lot.
Of course you were.
But, yeah. Good to know for the future, though, right? Next time I see a golf tournament and I see it's raining, I'm just going to draw a smiley face in my hand. Go right here.
Yeah, it's a lot. For those who've been to golf tournaments, I got to get better strategy. It's my first time around. Do you sit in the same hole? Do you follow a group? I mean, I learned my strategy towards the end of the tournament there, where to go, where to be. I saw a hole in one on the island green, which was cool. But I've got to get a better strategy. But either way, I am the cow of the week, Mike, because I paid a ridiculous amount of money to drink my way around the Players' Championship course this weekend. But it was a good time, as always. And this show was also a good time, Mike. We got some spring football to talk through, which is always cool. We talked a little basketball. We obviously caught up with Dee Brown. That was fun. It was an action-packed show, and we're glad. And we hope you enjoyed all of it, because we're not doing it again.
That's right. And we didn't even touch on baseball. We, had a little bit of a speed bump here this weekend, losing 2-3 to North Florida. But, get back on track. Big game against Miami on Wednesday night. Let's see if we can get a big win there.
And hopefully we'll have all that covered for you on Thursday on the Sons UCF live show with Trace Trucco, 8 to 9, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Make sure you're there. Make sure you're following all of our social medias. Again, get to that YouTube page, and a Tumblr could be yours. A lot going on. Miami and baseball on Wednesday. The women's team in the tournament on Saturday. Obviously, spring practice ramping up, so a lot of moving parts these days, and we will be here to bring it all to you. So everybody sit tight. Have a fantastic week, by the way, and take care of each other. Be nice, be kind, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon. Everybody, go Knights.
Charge on.